So Brianna Wu tweeted out, according to the Washington Post, the number of men under 30 who have never had sex has tripled in the past 10 years. This is an astonishing statistic. And that's not quite right. The share of Americans not having sex has reached a record high. More than ever, Americans aren't having sex. Percentage of Americans reporting no sex, monthly sex, or sex weekly or more in the past year. And then red is no sex, and then yellow is monthly sex, and then blue is weekly or more. And then over here, percent reporting no sex in the past year by age. And see right here for the orange line. Where is it? The portion of Americans 18 to 29 reporting no sex in the past year has more than doubled between 2008 and 2018, up to 23%. And then here you have the men going up. Somebody's actually shown an updated version of the chart where men and women have both spiked to equal levels, or even with women being higher, which I guess is kind of indicative of COVID to an extent. So I want to talk about this because it's interesting. All right. So here's my issue. Okay. So let's start with a basic assumption, which is that people are getting lonelier. I think that not only is this kind of like intuitively true, but there's a lot of data showing it. People have less friends on average. That's a big one, you know. And this stuff tends to affect men worse. Like that's a pretty well regarded sociological fact. Like men tend to be lonelier. Men are expected to do different things. They're expected to socialize in different ways, and that can manifest in different types of behavior and different social outcomes. So that's, yeah, I think a lot of people get that, right? Like there are guys in my chat. Don't you kind of feel like a little bit like maybe it's a little bit harder to sort of develop close friendships as a guy than as a girl? Like, yeah, it's yeah, and data backs that up. It's just I feel like experientially, a lot of us have kind of encountered that fact. But anyway, so anyway, I tweeted here. The people reading this and reflexively assuming it's the men's fault are contributing to the problem IMO. So the problem that I had is that a ton of people in response to this are blaming the men for this. So their response to this information was essentially saying like, "Oh, of course, this is because like men are bad and women have gotten more comfortable like telling them off or not spending time with them or whatever." Which seems like a really shallow and superficial. Like, look, women do not owe men sex. That's a weird assumption to make from the data of like nobody was talking about whether or not women owe men sex. We were just talking about an epidemic of male loneliness, which is a sociological problem, right? And I responded with this, and then people got mad at me. Where was that? Here we go. So look at this. If every woman that you come into contact with hates you, it's your fault. If women do not like you, it's your fault. I cannot emphasize that enough. If women do not like you, if women are repelled by your presence, it is your fault. Clap, clap, clap. But we're not talking about men who are hated by women. This quote refers to Elliot Rodger. Doesn't it seem like it's a little bit problematic for a sociological statistic referring to like a broad data set of men being lonelier? It's like, of course, because they're like Elliot Rodger. Like that's what you are if you're like a lonely guy or like a virgin or whatever. Like you're like Elliot Rodger. That is not. And look at this. Like I think that it is inescapably the men's fault. The alternative is patriarchal entitlement to the attention and bodies of women, no matter how you try to intellectualize it. Men have built their own prison of toxic masculinity and expectation. Do they think that every individual man individually constructs all of the patriarchal social standards that they like grow up to? Like guys are born like some kind of tabula rasa, and then like they're like, yes, I would love for my masculinity to be all this. This is what all these are all the ideas that I want to believe in, being part of what is this? This is like a very anti-intersectional way of thinking about these issues. Nobody's talking about entitlement to women's bodies. I'm sure there are some incel forums somewhere talking about that, but it certainly isn't present in my tweet or in what Brianna Wu tweeted or anything. Have you seen this tweet about your men take? Yeah, like this is what I mean. Lily Simpson, wait. Hey, isn't this one of those people who's been really weird about me in the past? Yeah, look at this, 15,000 likes. The people reading this are reflexively assuming it's the men's fault or contributing to the problem IMO. Is this not, with respect, is this not the exact same logic that conservatives make about black crime? Why would you ever think like, oh, a social demographic is having like some kind of statistical problem? Ah, must be their fault. Like, what happened to blaming society? Or like, what happened to like understanding that there are social influences? I've said this before, but like, it's very weird to me how like the intersectionality leaving my body as it occurs to me that men might not be individually responsible for like every element of the patriarchy. It's very, very strange. 15,000 likes, you know? Probably a lot of that is like because people hate me and I know this person hates me. Um Socialization happens like from the moment you're born, from before you're born to an extent. There's data on that too, weirdly. It's very complicated stuff. Um and to I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is a deeply reactionary way of thinking for so many ways. I don't even know how to get into it, really. It feels like it should be obvious to anyone who considers themselves a progressive. Lily Simpson used to have a channel called Gucci, and you talk with her like twice. Yeah, I know. Um, don't you think you might be overreacting to this issue? No, I'm not overreacting at all. All I said was I don't think it's men's fault that social forces are leading to men being much lonelier lately. And then people are assuming a lot of weird stuff from that. I think the phrasing in your first tweet was easy to misinterpret, but your following text made it clear. I disagree. I think that if you read this, like just this image worth of text in its own right, I think assuming that I mean it's women's fault is like a deranged assumption. I think that's a really uncharitable assumption to make. I have no like that's a really weird thing. It's the essentialization. It's like an individualization. This is like liberal brain right now. Like, well, just bootstraps your way through social problems, you know? She fucking hates you and constantly talks about you. Oh, I don't see any results from what you just sent me. But Twitter's been acting weird for me lately, so somebody linked your thread in the replies and they said it was cool. What? Oh man, there's a lot of stuff to go through in this thread. The whole thread can be summed up with patriarchal socialization, though he does not actually say the word patriarchy. I'm tired. What what's wrong with explaining a concept without directly referring to it so that I don't like alienate people who You clicked on the wrong tweet? I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh yeah. The terror. Say the buzzword. Say the buzzword. Have you considered you should just not be a straight man? Oh yeah, I saw this one. Sorry, Vosh. Men are shit, and even if they're shit because of the patriarchy, it's not our job to fix your emotional immaturity just so you can get more sex. This is such a straight man take, for fuck's sake. This is like a truly deranged, like, I don't know. Vosh creeping into Jordan Peterson territory with that thread. Did you know? Men's gendered socialization, aka the patriarchy created by men, that's not how socialization works, is your issue to solve, not mine. You're not a victim because women don't want to smash. Women are often the primary victims of the patriarchy. I it's really incredible to me how all you have to say is like men are lonely and that's a sociological problem for a bunch of deranged pseudo progressives to start screeching about how you're like advocating for state mandated girlfriends or something. Uh I What am I supposed to do as a man? Guess I'll die. Well, I think that's what they want you to do. Yeah. I don't know. It's really really weird. These people are being just as reactionary as Jordan Peterson. Can you really, like, let's be real. Can you blame, like, lonely guys for turning to Jordan Peterson when this is the reaction they get from the left? Not even just, like, the left not being sympathetic enough, but the left being objectively wrong, like broadly. Like, a lot of people are getting behind being objectively wrong on this. And hateful. I think it's hate. I do think it's hateful for it reminds me of like the all lives matter logic, right? Where somebody's like, men are experiencing a lot of social alienation, you know? And then somebody's like, women are the primary victims of the patriarchy. It's okay. All right. A lot of people in the thread were just like, yeah, men, they deserve it. Yeah, and the funny thing is, all these people have boyfriends, right? It's very much like the stereotype of like the person who spends all their day like screeching about how men bad, and then they go back to their boyfriend who's the good one. It's just a known and recurring pattern. This is exactly why I was conservative for so long. Yeah, loneliness is a very like it's a very personal and it's a very like all-consuming issue. Like loneliness like eats away at you. We're social animals. It's a very fundamental thing. Like social contact, the ability to interact with other people. And by the way, sex isn't everything like at all, but a spike in people not having sex is definitely a sort of comorbid factor when it comes to social alienation. Obviously, like, of course. Um, and, like, it really eats away at a person, like, on a fundamental level. So, to then, like, not only not care if there are social forces that are making men lonelier, but to actively, like, mock them for it, to me, is a fundamental, like, reactionary response that isn't really any different from the, like, intuitive attitudes that, any kind of bigot has, towards the groups they dislike. She hates you because of burning your bus so much. This person has been deranged about me for a long, 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 long time. It's fine. It's it's a whole thing. It's fine. I just don't get it. The weird thing is, this person's trans, the Lily Simpson, but like this attitude fuels transphobia massively. The idea that the idea that like men as a category are like innately bad and deserving of social harm is like overwhelmingly shared with this like turf attitude of biological essentialism. And considering we're already on, I guess every guy magically constructs the social standards by which he is raised, that's basically biological essentialism anyway, right? um if that's the attitude you're taking to it, it all leads to male socialization bullshit. Yeah, Keffels is getting shit for this too, but isn't she correct? Huh? No, Keffels is memeing here. There would be a lot less incels if people were less transphobic. There's a lot of straight trans women out there eager to ride some dick, and you all are just sleeping on that. First of all, there are not that many straight trans women. They're all bi. Um, Second of all, she was kidding here. Third of all, true. But more importantly, uh, yeah, it's a shit post. Um, man, I wish I could just like go through all this and like complain. I mean, I guess I could. Look at this. No woman wants to me. Is this my fault? No, it's every woman who is wrong. Who said that? Why are people so defensive here? Oh my god. It's all of this. Tens of thousands of people like this. Um, how is it anyone else's fault? Women don't owe men sex. No, like no, nobody. Oh my god. Sex should only happen between consenting adults. It's literally like you say, I think it's a problem that men are lonely, and they're like, so you want to rape people. That's actually what is happening here. That is the literal. No, this is why people go over to like Andrew Tate or Fresh and Fit. Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of young guys are lonely. Loneliness is like a almost inherent feeling to adolescence, right? Like it just God, find me any teenager who has not at some point felt like, I walk a lonely road. The only one that I have ever known. Like it's like all of them. And then you've got a bunch of lonely guys who are all internet poison because everyone is these days. And they go online and like people, so you'll have feminists who are simultaneously saying like feminism actually addresses men's issues. I'm not calling out Brianna. I like Brianna, by the way. I'm just highlighting here because it's the top of the thread. Brianna didn't do anything wrong. You at the same time you'll have progressives who will be like, actually, feminism addresses men's rights issues, and then you'll look at what feminists are saying about men's rights issues, and they're like, actually, not wanting to be lonely is tantamount to rape. So, okay, there are good feminists, but like, God, get some intersectionality, please. Right into your brain. Some intersectionality. My God. Um, Brianna was just wrong about the article, right? No, no, Brianna very slightly misrepresented the article here, but like I don't not in a way that rejects the like point that's being sort of referred to here. Um, oh yeah, Peacekeeper. I don't want to talk about it or nothing because it's a highly personal issue, but yeah. They won't go past second wave feminism. Well, if they're trans, I hope they go past second wave feminism because second wave feminists are all TERFs now. Um, could femmes be projecting their own socialized guilt for not taking care of men's needs? No, it's not guilt. I will be charitable here, and I will say this, okay? If you're a woman, you've spent your entire life dealing with guys who feel entitled to your body. That's like every chick, you know? So I can understand a degree of defensiveness. I understand how there might be like kind of an innate aversion to anything that sounds like it's like a, oh well, it's women's fault, men aren't getting laid thing. But I still don't think that justifies the deranged extent of uncharitability that I saw. Um, not even close, not even close. Um, you know, this negative social information only makes the lonely men more likely to be negative towards women. Well, yeah, of course. Obviously, people want to feel like their issues are being taken seriously by the groups that they're a part of. If they're not, if they're sort of being mocked or insulted for it, then obviously it'll manifest in negative ways. Anyway, I wanted to talk like, okay, so we're being really negative right now, but I want to talk about like the epidemic of loneliness, okay? If we could. So a lot of what is causing loneliness right now is broad. It's like it's a broad social thing. Um, so a big one right now is economic alienation and poverty. It's really difficult to have a dating life when you live with your parents or with 15 roommates, and it's really difficult to take people on dates when you can't afford anything. Dates are expensive. Obviously, you can date people for free. Um, you can go on walks or whatever, but like, let's be real. If you like somebody, you want to have a nice meal with them. Humans have been doing that for as long as we have history to record them doing it. You can just spend time together, but like if you like someone, you want to do things with them, and in society, doing things costs money. Um, so that can really like hamper people's ability to go out and do stuff. Also, really living with your family or living with roommates really cuts down it. Even like I remember being in high school or whatever. Like they live with their parents, I live with my parents. What if you want to like be intimate? Like it's logistically difficult. And the thing is, that gets more like embarrassing and difficult to deal with the older you are, right? Like if you're like 18 and you live with your parents, that like okay, I think most reasonable people, like if there's a cute girl off Tinder and you're like, "Oh yeah, I can't host at my place because of like okay, whatever. I think she's going to be fine. She will understand." But if you're like 23, 26, 28, I don't think there's anything wrong with living with your family because I'm based in Tradpilled. I support like the Hispanic model of having like 87 people in the same house. Godspeed. But not everyone is so understanding, and it does interfere with it does interfere with your ability to have people over, right? Um, it's just yeah. So stuff like that is universal. Though I do think the economic stuff affects guys more because even though it's not as common as it used to be, guys are like more expected to pay. So like again, in the dating circles that I've run in, the idea that people split is pretty common, but in a lot of spaces not necessarily. Um so that can be a bit of a hamper. But I think a big element of this, and the element that I was broadly referring to when I talked about this being a gendered issue, is socialization. This is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people prefer having female friends to male friends. I think a lot of people do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with guys, like inherently or anything. I think it's that guys are really emotionally closed off and it can be frustrating and difficult to befriend them. Um, because in my experience, so like, you know, uh, newsflash, story time, I'm a guy. Yeah, I tend to be pretty straightforward with my feelings if I'm affectionate or appreciative towards somebody. I try to. Maybe it's an autism thing. I'll just say what I feel, whatever. I think it's good. Um, but a lot of guys have to bury sincerity behind like 50 layers of irony in order to be directly affectionate with other people, especially other men. And by affectionate, I mean like friend affectionate. Like, I really appreciate you coming out here today. I've been feeling lonely lately and it's great to hang out with you. You know, you're really fun to be around. Stuff like this, very basic statements of appreciation, are not that common between men, you know? Um, Whereas with women, it's often like a lot easier, you know? In my opinion. You know, obviously I'm generalizing. Uh, and stuff like that. Like, this is a classic component of male socialization. It's the old idea of the strong man. Yeah, right? Like, like, think of what it means to be like a manly man. Like, if you look at like classic male archetypes or male sex symbols throughout history. Like, you've got the John Wayne archetype, right? Like, one thing you don't have is a guy who's really straightforward with his feelings and affectionate and kind and yada yada, you know? Even Sean had a good Twitter take here. Lots of people proposing explanations for this, some good, some bad. I just like to note that the trend upward started in 2008 there. Just personally, I didn't date for a good stretch in my 20s because I was totally broke even when I was working. Yeah, isn't that, like, notable? 2008, the financial crisis, right? That's something, you know? That's a data point. That's information worth taking into account, you know? He doesn't get dogpiled. Whatever. Anyway, I wanted to talk about like a couple of elements of this, the ways in which it's gendered that I think are worth thinking about. So I did a Twitter thread that of course earned me the expected amount of ire. Um where I called it a serious sociological problem, which was received better than the initial tweet, to be fair. But, you know, I want to talk about, like, look, the economic element is one thing. I think the economic element is going to slightly disproportionately affect men because men are more likely to be expected to be kind of like the providers. But that's still like a broader thing. An element that might increase like general loneliness broadly, that is not gendered, is city design. We've talked about this a lot before, but it still remains really, really important. One of the reasons that like people in America, especially, reminisce about college is because college was the last time they lived in a walkable area where you had dorms and then you could walk to like stuff nearby and there were people nearby and you can walk to like a grocer that's on campus, uh, and there aren't cars running through well, there are cars that run through campus, but not mostly, you know. And most of our cities are, well, they don't facilitate that kind of social interaction, which means that you know, invariably, in a car-dependent culture, it is increasingly difficult to easily interact with other people, you know? And I think that plays a, you know, a huge part in this sort of thing. Um, but I think the biggest element when it comes to like the gendered forces behind loneliness, the biggest element really is male socialization. I just don't think that men are like taught to be very forthcoming and emotional with other people in a way that's healthy, you know? The funny thing is that I don't think first of all, being emotional is not like a feminine thing. Guys are incredibly emotional. They just have different emotions that are like considered masculine, right? Like getting super angry or indignant or whatever. Like you know, the women get hit with the emotional label, but like look at any video of guys arguing at each other at a sports game or whatever, and tell me guys aren't emotional. When people say emotional, what they mean is like cries easily, you know? But if it's considered masculine to be passionate, and it is to an extent, then why can't we be passionate about how we express our appreciation for our friends? Are we that like afraid of vulnerability? To an extent, yeah. I think a lot of people are also so focused on their hustle grind set that they don't trust a potential friendship that would be that like intimate or involved, you know? Have you ever felt like have you ever felt like you've got so much going on in your life that the idea of like a mutually invested friendship would be too much? It would distract you from some other like important life thing, you know, your work or something or another, or you're too tired to have a friend. It really sucks that people, you know, I think part of that is like a bad priority, and I think part of that is just that we're kind of conditioned to be on the hustle grind set. And it makes it really difficult to think of making and keeping friends as a worthwhile pursuit in its own right, you know? We're kind of taught to feel like it's a waste, if that makes any sense. Hey, Stu22. That's what school tells you, actually. Well, everything in our culture, when it comes to like instilling values in people, it treats hanging out with your friends as like a waste of time, or like that's free time that you engage in, but it should be not be taken at the expense of important stuff like working your minimum wage retail job, you know? Um, which is deeply messed up, you know, priority wise. It's very obviously humans do not live to make 7.85 an hour, you know, at a Starbucks barista. It's very obviously not what we're here for. We're here to form friend circles and make dumb in jokes and develop an internal lexicon that makes no sense to outsiders. It doesn't help that we're basically like ordered to not make friends at work, you know? Honestly, one thing I've noticed is that I want to be more emotional with my guy friends, but for some reason there's some sort of mental aversion showing up that I don't feel with female friends. Well, I think a lot of that is just that you perceive guys, not unjustly, as being an unfit or like a disinterested receptacle for your emotional interest, right? Guys don't give oftentimes like the indication that they want to be treated that way. So it's difficult to you know, to imagine that as like a worthwhile metric of interaction, you know? I don't know. It's really difficult stuff. All listen, I know one thing for sure, and that is if we continue to have this incredibly dismissive attitude towards this issue, we basically guarantee that people like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, the fresh and fit guys, they're always going to be around. They're always going to be powerful. You're always going to have legions of 14-year-olds who just randomly drop into fascist ideology because they get pipelined into it from people who actually do tell them that their loneliness matters and is a social problem. It's a really easy W for the left because only intersectionality is capable of addressing it. But I guess we could just like hate men otherwise, you know? As a male presenting mental health worker, I get so many comments like, you're so easy to talk to for a guy. Yeah. That's why a lot of people prefer a female doctor as well. Just the idea that women are easier to socialize with. What do individuals do in the meantime? Please, I feel like you're missing stuff. Obviously, this is really variable, you know, because a lot of people are going to have individual circumstances that make it impossible for them to account for this or that. Like, depending on how much you work or how much money you have, where you are in the world, it can be really difficult to give like a one size fits all prescription. But I would say that generally speaking, most people could benefit, most guys, because I'm talking about guys mostly here, but most people really could benefit from a couple of things. And that would be, first of all, uh, you know, try to experiment with hmm, try to experiment with being forward with people in a fashion that you're comfortable with and they don't seem to be uncomfortable with. Being straightforward with stuff, very simple stuff like, hey, I enjoyed talking to you, or hey, it was a lot of fun spending time with you. I know that sounds really like step one, but I really do mean it because a lot of guys can't even do this. They don't even like express very basic indications of appreciation. They'll just like, you know, just stuff like that, you know? I had a lot of fun talking to you, you know, anything like that. Like, get comfortable with stuff like that. I think that's like a good start, you know? And learning how to talk to strangers a little bit can be really helpful. Again, I don't mean like being weird or whatever. I just mean that if you're you know, at some kind of like median social space, like a park or a bar or any kind of like event, you know, uh, and you're just around someone, you can just say stuff like, well, I guess it really depends on where you're at, you know. I guess if you're at some, just like I'm trying to think because it's so contextual, right? Just be an Oblivion NPC, walk up to them and ask them, "How do you feel about this?" No, um, are you a liberal? Yeah. Uh, a lot of it really does require a kind of social acumen to understand what an acceptable opener is. Stop, you violated the law. Yeah. Um, maybe even honestly, maybe just start with like going outside and going on walks, you know? I think one of the big factors in like isolation is the fact that, hold on, I don't have my usual art application installed, so we're doing the MS Paint memes, okay? One of the other big ones is that like okay, we're doing MS Paint. Is that like when you're in a most people will live like here, right? And then they'll get in their car in the garage or whatever, and then they'll take like a winding path, and then they'll end up here where they have a thing to do. And when they're done doing that thing, they go back home. And to them, the world is two boxes, you know? Going on walks can make the place that you live in feel so much more real and give you so many more opportunities to kind of like discover interesting stuff. When you're driving, the only thing you can pay attention to is the road, and that's for safety reasons, of course, you know. So you're focusing on right turn, left turn, forward, car, don't hit the bicyclist, blah blah, or do if you're feeling spicy that day. But at the end of the day, like when it comes to interacting with the world around you, you do that on foot, and you're only on foot once you arrive at your destination. Going on walks from time to time can be really nice, you know, because then the world opens up a little bit, and it's not just the road; it's all the places along the way. You know, it's the little coffee shop you didn't realize existed. It's the little like it's the like I don't know Mediterranean restaurant that's at the far end of a little parking outlet that has really like good cheap food. You know, it's the barcade that you didn't know was there because you don't pay attention to the rapid gentrification of your neighborhood. It's the really pleasant like park over here that you can take a walking trail through and oh look at that there's like a I don't know what's in parks basketball court and there's some people playing basketball and stuff and oh that's really cool and oh wow the houses on this street are way older than the houses on like the other streets that you live around. That's crazy. Oh my god, is that tree like 100 years old? It's so big. And really the place that you live in becomes like an actual town that you can interact with and make decisions about. Of course the world feels small. It feels like you have nothing to do when all you do is like go from box to box via the circuitous metal box car route, you know? I don't know. Stuff like that can help. Practice being a little bit, you know, a little bit more social, being forthcoming about how you feel, experience the world a little bit more broadly. Stuff like that helps a lot. I think it does. I am essentially just saying touch grass, but I understand that's not very helpful, and I do genuinely believe that stuff like this is a good, you know. Yeah, canvassing can help. Go to vosh.gg/Matt. That'll get you there. You going to tell us to clean our rooms next? Um, it does help to have a clean room. Doesn't hurt. Not gonna lie. If you could change the ideal masculine archetype, what would you want it to be? No gender abolition answer, please. Ah, you preempted me. Look, so what you're asking about is positive masculinity. And there are characteristics associated with men that are like just good, right? Confidence, strength, decisiveness. These are just good things to be. And don't get me wrong, I want women to be these things too. But if you're going to adopt like masculine characteristics, those are ones that are, you know, very enviable. Um it's good. You shouldn't be afraid of being masculine if you feel this weird pull between like the social pressure to be hyper masculine and the progressive instinct to avoid it. You shouldn't have it's not dichotomous, you know. You can be masculine in a fashion that is not problematic. Uh it's not impossible. I think it's actually quite easy once you get a feel for how you're meant to behave. I've noticed a big problem with lefty guys is that they don't really know when to turn like on or off the progressive instinct attitude. Like there are guys who will be like, women want you to be like a new man, but then they want you to be like an old fashioned guy sometimes. And I think this is like a really pointless back and forth because it's not really true. You know, people want you to be like a new man in the sense that you're not a raging misogynist, I think. And they want you to be more traditionally masculine if the woman is into that, in the sense that you're sort of strong and confident and what have you. Yeah, they just want you to act normal. Just be normal. Just be normal, you know? Just be normal. Share this, men being men. Yeah, there you go. Listen to Schwarzenegger and Stallone making pumpkins. Actually, the honest to God, the best example that I can think of positive masculinity, which was just cited in chat, would be the Body Improvement Club from Mob Psycho 100. I'm not joking when I say that. When they're introduced, it's the joke is that Mob wants to like get more fit, so he joins up with the beefy jock club, which the joke is that like he's going to be bullied, but then none of them are bullies. They're actually really supportive guys, and it's never actually a joke. It's an anti-joke because you expect all these dudes to be meatheads who are like really mean, but they're actually just really kind people who are also really strong, and they're just like that the whole time, and they're consistent characters. Um, yeah, they're great. Everyone who's seen the show knows they're great. Everyone knows they're great. Defying expectation, the definition of a joke. Yeah, but I mean, like, it's not played off as a punchline. That's just what they actually are, you know? Because it's normally you'd have this stereotype of like, oh, it's a big beefy guy, but actually he's really soft and feminine, and it's like a one-off joke. But in this case, they're just characters who are really nice. So it's not, you know, it's not exploitative. It's good. It's good.